Hello and welcome to Hyperlocal in Huntsville, Alabama. Today I have a local entrepreneur, and this interview is not simply going to be an interview with a local entrepreneur. This is going to be something that I think will benefit probably 90% of you watching today. So if I'm wrong, please let me know. I would love to find out. So just say, hey, sorry, it didn't help me. There is something for you in this interview today. Today, I have the lovely Amarie Whetten. And so, Amarie, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. So, I am a local entrepreneur. I grew up actually in Colorado and spent about 15 years in Tucson, Arizona, and then came to Huntsville, Alabama just 6 years ago. I came here to work at a defense company in missile systems and have been an entrepreneur now while doing that for about 10 years. But about 18 months ago, I started a business that launched very quickly, and I was able to replace my salary in about 9 months. And now I've been working part-time from home since then, building a business with some locals and also around the world even. So that's what I've been doing lately and really enjoying it.
Okay, that is very interesting to begin with. And as we unpack this, I had said there's something that's going to benefit probably 90% of the people watching this. So hold on and you will see. Tell us a little bit about the business that you're currently doing and, how it came about and what inspired you to get involved with this business.
I love it. So 90% is the perfect number because it's
Hmm.
related to pre-diabetes, diabetes, high blood pressure, and excess weight. And 90% of the population is struggling, is either has already been diagnosed with these things or is just about to be diagnosed with them. And so I found a product that helps people intercede and helps their body to heal and recover using intermittent fasting and a plant fiber blend in order to lose really extensive weight, people who want to do that. And really, the name of the game is I'm trying to help people get off of their pharmaceuticals. So, blood pressure
Mhm.
medication, type 2 glucose issues. If they're struggling with excess weight, but they want a natural alternative, that's what I do. And so, how I got into this was there was a diabetes educator that was at a seminar that I was at. I was busy working the seminar, but she had talked to my husband about it and she just said, I lost my belly fat. I have been doing this for just a couple of weeks and my belly fat's gone. And that's all it took for my husband to hear. He's like, belly fat? I want to get rid of my belly fat.
Mhm.
He came home, he started using the system, and he literally melted right before
Mhm.
my eyes. In a week, he'd lost 8 pounds. A couple days later, he had lost 10 pounds. And that's when I got to a point where I was like, what? Like, what's happening here? What is going on? And so I just really reached out to find out what was it that was working so well for my husband. And
Mhm.
once I heard about the science behind it, which was so crazy simple and just such an eloquent solution
Mhm.
to a lot of these things that we're facing that we've been masking with pharmaceuticals to kind of
Mhm.
like a pharmaceutical is basically if your engine light is on that red light, if you take a piece of black tape and you cover the engine light with it and
Mhm.
you feel calm because
Mhm.
you can't see the engine light anymore, but in
Mhm.
fact it's still on. So it only counts that you have been able to, if you're on medications to deal with some of these issues, you still haven't
Mhm.
resolved them. You've just covered your engine light.
Okay. Okay. So take us a little bit more into the practicality of what this is and more specifically the products and how it works.
Yeah, sure, sure. So part of the products, how they work, and also the business, I think why I was able to
Mhm.
replace my engineering salary in such a short
Mhm.
period of time is really the virality of these products because they work so well and it's
Mhm.
unambiguous. So when someone starts using them, they know that it's this. And so what it includes is we combine intermittent fasting or time-based eating. And so when our bodies skip a meal like breakfast or lunch or dinner, but I skip breakfast because I'm a mom of four and no one really notices if I don't eat in the morning. But if I miss out on dinner, dinner is the time that we would typically sit down together. They notice. So what I do is I skip breakfast and I use this concentrated yerba mate tea. It just turns off the food noise and makes me feel amazing. And what it does, it just makes it easy to intermittent fast. And then my glucose levels stay down and I'm not using as much insulin. And when we are using less insulin, we start looking like we're 10 years younger. So if you want some the anti-aging cream that you put on your face, this is even better because if you can get less insulin in your bloodstream, it is the best anti-aging cream you can find. If you can intermittent fast, your body releases something called human growth hormone, which also is like the fountain of youth. And when we create a window when we're not eating, our body starts sending us more of this human growth hormone to repair, and it even gets rid of like the fine lines on our skin without any cream.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing so much about intermittent fasting these days, and it seems like a lot of people are sort of getting on that bandwagon, but this is in combination with some other things to make it quite different from just simply intermittent fasting, right?
I love it because when people intermittent fast, sometimes what they do is hunger wins, right? So it's say
Right.
they go without eating and they're hangry and they're a little bit cold. And you think like, oh, I don't want to live with someone who's walking around hangry. Hangry is
Mhm.
just a sign that you have dysregulated blood sugar. It means your blood sugar is
Mhm.
off. But when we use this, it comes in a simple packet and I just mix it up and, I actually mix it in water. It just makes you so you're in a really good mood. The tea, it's a leaf that grows in Argentina. So it's just natural in the same way that like reishi mushroom makes you sleepy. This yerba mate tea gives you amazing focus and mood, really helps you to hyper focus and be a lot nicer. So intermittent fasting, your question is good, Sarah. It's intermittent fasting has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, so it's not a new fad. Almost every religion on the planet has some kind of fasting that goes with it. And
Mhm.
what we're doing is we're just using it a way to heal our bodies. If we kind of get the food out of the way, our body knows what to do to start repairing itself.
Okay. Yeah. Um, it's interesting you should say that because a while back,
Mhm.
my church was doing some fasting.
Yes.
And I decided the way that I could participate that would work for me literally was I think I can skip breakfast.
Mhm.
And that's what I did is I skipped breakfast and I didn't eat until lunch.
Mhm.
And I didn't really lose weight. I mean, I did it for a good while, like a period of, I don't know, probably about, well, several weeks,
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks of doing that. I
Yeah.
didn't lose weight. Okay.
Mhm.
However, and this may get into a little bit, but I just, I've actually started using this, and I don't want to take over this interview by telling my experience, but I can tell more about it later. Um, but it has been a better experience using these products than it was without it. But I'm going to get back to you, and I'll tell more about mine later. But um, so as you have gotten involved with this, how have you educated yourself or stay relevant with what you're doing here with these products?
I love that question. So I've always been really interested in health and nutrition for most of my adult life. My background is in chemical engineering,
Mhm.
but I really had a lot of focus around biology and how our body processes food, how
Mhm.
we react to exercise and calories and metabolism overall has really been a hobby of mine for as long as I can
Mhm.
remember. And like you said, with fasting, sometimes when you fast, what this does when you add a supplement like the Urimati, it just makes it more effective so
Mhm.
that you are like 70, you burn 70% more fat in your fasted state. And how I got really fascinated, how I still stay relevant is I'm always reading a book. So there's some authors that I love. Dr. Ben Bickman is one of them. There's a
Mhm.
woman, Dr. Mindy Peltz, who writes on Fast Like a Girl. She talks
Mhm.
about how we manage our monthly female cycles with intermittent fasting, how we age. So book that I'm reading is really looking at reversing Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes, and a lot of
Mhm.
it is heading off some of the basic things that we know that we need to do if we want to avoid losing our minds in our 60s and 70s and
Mhm.
80s. And that has been my focus for a couple decades, is constantly reading, watching videos, Dr. Berg, Dr. Jason Fung. So that's what I do. My hobby is reading books on this and watching YouTube videos. I study every day to keep relevant. And then the other
Mhm.
piece of it is I make videos on social media about something. I learn something and then I
Mhm.
teach it. Learn something new and then I teach it in a
Mhm.
minute and 30-second video.
Well, and you have gotten a lot of followers, by the way. I've noticed that you have quite a few followers on Facebook. And is it because of your educational videos, or how have you managed to have like literally tens of thousands of viewers or
Yeah, no,
followers?
I think today I have about 75,000 followers
Wow.
on Facebook. And it is the educational reels. So I
Okay.
actually make those. I make them in TikTok because that's what I
Mhm.
know a little bit more how to edit. So it's more efficient
Mhm.
for me to do it there. And so then I'll come up with a topic. I'll make a short video on it, and then I'll post it on my Facebook reels and my Instagram reels. And that's what's growing. That momentum is the kind of the constant education and really teaching people something at kind of a basic level about
Mhm.
their bodies or what to eat that help them that day, that help them right away, and what should they do at their next meal.
Okay. So do you feel like that's the secret to getting your followers though, is because you've got valuable education?
And I definitely think it's being consistent, but I can tell you that I'm going to be 50 this year, and our audience are the ones that we came in when Facebook kind of opened up, like 2009. That's when we showed up on Facebook. I
Yeah.
posted twice a day, probably every day for since I got on Facebook, whatever I
Wow.
was doing. And so I think part of the consistency is, so before I started making videos, I had 2 or 3 thousand friends. Then I moved from friends to followers,
Okay.
posted these reels, and that's when it took off. So really just in the last 5 months, I went from about 4,000 followers to 75,000 followers with,
Amazing.
with, with reels. Because Sarah, the reason is just like when you're
Mhm.
doing a podcast here, people get to know you better when they see your face. They get a chance to
Mhm.
hear how you speak. They get to know what the topic is a little bit, and people like that kind of minute and a half bite-sized portion of data coming to them.
Yes, I I I get that, and yet that's still amazing. Still quite amazing. So take us through a typical day in your shoes. You're a mom of four, and you still a chemical engineer and doing this as well? And tell us what your day is like.
Yeah, I love it. So I did retire from my job. So I with
Yeah.
defense. So I put in my resignation Independence Day last year. So this is the one
Wow.
anniversary of me resigning from my career. And we say once you're a chemical engineer, you're always a chemical engineer. But I am not as much acting in that capacity. So a typical day for me is we have like family gym time. So I have two teenagers. My oldest are 18 and 16 when I was about to go off to college at Auburn. And this last kind of our last summer hurrah together, the four of us, so my husband and my two daughters and I, we get up and we go to the gym 3 days a week and work out. So we break off into
Great.
groups of two each, and work out there. I also like to make sure I get a hike. I love Montesano. I love to get out for a hike or walk almost every day to keep moving my body. But then I would come back and I'll study. I'll read something, I'll learn something, and I'll probably spend half an hour, 45 minutes in that. I'll plan my content. I'll follow up with my customer base and my team. So I have a growing team of people that are doing this. I'm teaching them how to do what I did on social media. We also have some office space here locally in Huntsville. We meet once a week. On Wednesdays, we meet in one location, and Fridays, we meet in another location for a group of entrepreneurs that are also looking to build businesses. So that's been really exciting. In the afternoon, I'll have lunch. My husband also works from home, so we'll
Mhm.
typically have a late lunch together and go for a walk with whoever's home. In the afternoon, during the summer, we'll stop down at the neighborhood pool for 45 minutes and kind of play
Mhm.
outside. And then in the evenings, a lot of people that I work with still have their jobs, so they're working and they're not available into the evening until the evening. So I'll spend some time coaching some people that are trying to learn a specific skill. I'll do that a couple evenings a week, do some coaching, some fun coaching with my team, but I love it. So in a week, I still probably work about 25 hours. I probably still work about 25 hours a week. So I have a lot of like flexibility in how I do it, but that's what my day looks like. And then family dinner, we typically have family dinner a couple nights a week together too.
That is so awesome. So you've had a career as a chemical engineer, and then now you've got another career, but it's kind of more family and life focused.
Mhm.
That's great. That is so awesome. And then, and with what you're doing, you're helping people. So I love that. How do you hope that your business is going to impact the community or industry in the long run? What kind of legacy would you like to leave?
I love it. When I was working, I found myself many a week working, 45, 50 hours a week. And it did feel like all my best hours went to this company.
Mhm.
Honestly, we had a lot of great things. I got to travel a lot. It was a very exciting career that I had. But now what I feel like I'm doing is I'm teaching people how to actually build health and wealth. And that impacts them on a very personal and a very daily basis when you can change someone's life by I've several people on my team who have also been able to leave their career, their jobs like I have, and be able to do what we're doing
Mhm.
full time, part time from home. And so that's really rewarding because you kind of have this virtual, almost like office community with my other partners, my business partners and
Mhm.
colleagues. And so what I hope to leave is I hope to leave wealth for,
Mhm.
these people who are my close friends.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them also, make $1 million in 1 year, doing something where they get to work from home. And then from a community standpoint, the space that I play in is very dear because it's the parents who have passed away of Alzheimer's, they've lost their heads in their 60s, and there's a solution where they don't have to lose their heads. They don't have to have this brain fog and confusion because what it is sugar in their blood. And there's
Okay.
no meds that have been touching Alzheimer's disease. They've spent
Okay.
$1 zillion on research. There's no medications that can touch it.
So I heard you call Alzheimer's disease like type 3 diabetes. And
Mhm.
so I've heard that, and I think this is something that to me is so interesting because you hear so many theories, and there was even, I think, something that they thought was the cause, like these amyloid plaques and all these different things, and then pursued and really put lots of money into some of these avenues that ended up kind of being dead ends, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I may be wrong about that.
Right.
That's
There's
what I
no,
think what I've heard.
they were
And
all dead. Yep.
so
They
tell us a little bit more about what the type 3 diabetes
Mhm.
Alzheimer's theory
Yeah.
or
So it's really, no, that's a great question because it's really, so insulin resistance is pre-diabetes. Many people here call, which is type 2 diabetes and
Mhm.
Alzheimer's, type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's is
Mhm.
the spectrum. But if someone has high blood pressure, that's your first sign. If you have high blood pressure, you have pre-diabetes. Like that's
Okay.
your body's first notice. Your body will have skin tags. You'll see skin tags on your neck, dark circles under your eyes, or on your
Mhm.
armpits will have dark, also like on the back of your neck, you may see some like dark, it's almost like you need to clean your neck, but it doesn't come off. These are some
Mhm.
of your body signs, psoriasis, your body telling you that your sugar, there's too much sugar in your bloodstream.
Mhm.
And so as that goes on, someone might go on to have Alzheimer's, but they were never diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. You don't have to go through the stages in order to get to the end.
Mhm.
My best friend Megan, who the person who introduced us together, her mother died of Alzheimer's in her 60s, and in hindsight, all the signs were there, but we didn't know the signs, right? She was thin, but she was eating fruit all day long, so
Mhm.
snacking all day long on healthy foods, nuts and fruits. But what is causing these problems is this constant eating, constant elevation of glucose and insulin
Mhm.
all day long.
Mhm.
And so she had eye floaters. She
Mhm.
started having brain fog. She couldn't do elementary math with her grandkids anymore. There
Mhm.
was just a lot of signs. Her triglycerides were elevated. So if you have the two big things that I worry about is someone's triglycerides being high, I kind of ignore the bad cholesterol, the LDL. But HDL, you want to get up. So low HDL is the good cholesterol. And
Mhm.
your triglycerides are really the big indication of what's going on with your insulin
Mhm.
resistance. So
Yeah.
type 3 diabetes,
Yeah.
there's no meds, right? So, and once
Yeah.
people kind of get into that stage, they even struggle to reverse it. So what we're working on is prevention. And
Mhm.
that comes with exercise, focusing on a low carbohydrate. So the pastas, breads, sugar, cookies, cakes, really limiting the
Mhm.
intake of those and really focusing most of our food on protein and healthy fats, protein like beef, chicken, pork, healthy fats like avocado, olives, olive oil,
Mhm.
and then greens, broccoli, cauliflower, some of those greens, and not drinking your calories. So
Mhm.
there's no soda, like soda. Like if you think about this, when
Mhm.
if you're drinking a soda, you're giving yourself Alzheimer's disease. So while you're sitting there
Mhm.
drinking your soda, you're like, I'm gonna lose my mind over
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
Coca-Cola.
Your friend Megan, who you mentioned earlier. And as she was talking to me about this, uh, it did not take me long at all to be able to put together some of the things she was telling me, because over the years, I've done a lot of research myself about diet and lifestyle and um, but I was hitting some roadblocks. And I had mentioned, that I did some fasting, but it wasn't for the purpose of losing weight, but it was really for the purpose of prayer. But I just observed that, well, even though I fasted, I didn't lose any weight. Oh, well, I didn't think too much of it. Um, but I have noticed because, and I'm going to get a little bit personal here. I am postmenopausal. Um, and I've reached a point where I couldn't lose weight either. And I was starting to get a little belly, which I've never had. I've always been able to have my waist has always been pretty small. And so I've not been able to do anything. And I was a former aerobics instructor when I was in college. That was my job, was to teach aerobics. And so I've always been able to exercise myself and find ways to stay fit. But I had hit a roadblock.
Mhm.
And then also, as I've gotten older, with postmenopause,
Right.
having thyroid issues.
Hmm.
So I have Hashimoto's,
Hmm.
uh,
Right. Which is
and so
autoimmune.
autoimmune
Yeah.
issues.
Hmm.
So when she was telling me about this, I thought I'm going to try it. So I'm just going to tell our audience I've been doing this for a week and a half. I started it and I did it pretty much to the T. Okay. I did it exactly as is recommended. But for a person who literally, I was stuck at that weight, I've not been able to lose anything. And again, it's not about the weight for me as much as it is the health. But I I basically lost a pound per day for 6 days. I have come down a solid 6 pounds, maybe eight, 6 to 8 pounds, but I'll say definitely 6 pounds. And it has stayed off. So Friday, I started on a Saturday. By Friday, I had lost 6 pounds. Then I went to a wedding weekend. And of course, everything diet wasn't perfect, but I still, did this Unimate and the balance. And then I'm still that same weight. I've sort of plateaued, but not gone back up at all. And I am amazed, truly. And I do feel good. I don't feel like I felt when I was fasting without the drink,
Hmm.
because it keeps you alert, it keeps you feeling good so that you don't feel hangry, you know. And so I'm just sitting here telling you what I've experienced so far, and I'm so excited about continuing to try this to see how it's going to affect my health.
Yes, yes, it is exciting. And with autoimmune, that's a good one too. So autoimmune, often what you have is inflammation, is what an autoimmune disorder, depending, a
Mhm.
thyroid, any auto, fibromyalgia, some of the autoimmune, when you're able to address that inflammation, which is what you're able to do through this protocol, people see relief from so many different things because the root of so many of them are inflammation. And
Mhm.
I know people always say, like, well, get the inflammation out. Everyone's like, okay, like, how do
Mhm.
I, okay,
How do I do that?
how do I get the inflammation out? They really don't know. And you don't, they have pharmaceuticals that can help reduce the inflammation, but that's the path that you don't want to go. And now you're back in this pharmaceutical cycle that we're trying to avoid. And so if you can address the inflammation through fasting, it makes a huge difference in your life through fasting. And then the fiber blend helps reduce your glucose. And when you get your insulin down, all of this helps with inflammation. This tea is just a natural, like anti-inflammatory. And one of the things I was thinking about, so I just went to Italy recently. I just got back from Italy a couple weeks ago, and I had an injury with my ankle doing hill runs right before I left. My new 81-year-old friend said, when you're our age, you cannot redline it anymore, right? There's no like last push if you're working out. We're trying to avoid injuries, which now is my second injury that I'm going to start paying more attention to that.
Mhm.
But every night, my ankle of the foot I injured would swell up almost twice its size. I didn't get a chance to do a long fast in Italy because we were eating pasta and bread and sightseeing and it's food being brought to you. But as soon as I got home, I did an extended fast. I did a 36-hour fast. And
Mhm.
that's all it took to knock out this chronic inflammation. Once I knocked it out, it's been
Wow.
gone since. And
Wow.
part of what you're seeing, what
Mhm.
people see when they have these autoimmune is you get a chance to reduce that inflammation and the frozen shoulder that was bothering you doesn't bother you, plantar fasciitis, like all of these things that inflammation is irritating you, go away.
Okay. Well, it makes sense. And so I've been doing a little bit of watching some of the testimonies of people that have used this and reading about it. And so that fasting period really is important. I mean, sure, you can skip it occasionally, but if you really want to get the full benefit of it, and it's not as hard as people might think it would be. But interestingly, before I started, I was actually at a doctor's appointment and I was able to ask my doctor, hey, what do you think about me doing this? Well, she pulled it up on the computer right there. She read the ingredients. She said, oh, it's all natural ingredients. No problem. Just go ahead. And she had no qualms with telling me that it was fine for me to use this. And I think about, people sometimes they're hesitant to start a program, putting something in their bodies when they don't really know what it is. And I think, but by the same token, people are willing to eat Cheetos or drink alcohol or do all these other things that they think nothing of, and they think, about the consequences of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that, again, if you have severe health issues, surely, talk to your doctor about it and you'll feel better. But I'm glad that I had that opportunity to ask her before I even started. So I just dove right in.
Yeah,
And
I love that too, that you got to, the doctor's like, when they look it up, they're like, it's just plants with no side effects. So when you combine these two products together and with this protocol, it works like Ozempic. I mean, it works like the semaglutide, but without the side effects. So people get the same result. They get them just as fast. Um, you get the same people end up losing weight about the same rate that they do, but they don't have to worry about the side of it. They don't have to worry about going off of it later. And so that's been an advantage just for people who are looking for an alternative to that. Maybe they don't
Mhm.
want to use the pharmaceutical for that.
Well, one thing I really did not want to do on our interview today was to sound like an infomercial. I really did not want to. And I hope we're not doing that because I really do want to feature you, Amarie, and because you are truly a remarkable person. You've done so much in your life, and I appreciate everything you're sharing with us. But I do think that this is something that people may want to consider trying because if they don't need it, maybe they're in perfect health, and they know someone who could use it. Um, it's worthwhile. My dad, he had a massive heart attack, and then after that had de- developed dementia. And the last 10 years of his life, my mom took care of him with dementia, and it was just so hard, and he was not overweight, but he had his bad cholesterol was high.
Mhm.
And I also, my bad cholesterol is high, just like my dad's was. And so And that was only recent years. Like after that menopause, that's when a lot of this will show up. And that's when my bad cholesterol started going up. So my doctor's been monitoring that for about a year now. And it actually has improved. Um, I've been able to get it down. So I cannot wait to see how my blood work is going to change over time with doing this. And
Yeah,
I'm
and
just so excited. Now, this is worldwide too. I mean, like people use this all over the world.
50, 60 countries. Yeah. So
Mhm,
it's all over the world. And what you said is really interesting too about the bad cholesterol, the LDL
mhm,
cholesterol. What they've seen is the people who that use statins to lower their bad cholesterol so much actually ended up with a higher risk of death. They didn't live as long. If you got that LDL really low, and they've been, like on a lifetime of statins in order to reduce your
mhm,
LDL cholesterol,
mhm,
and they really only live like 4 days longer for all the side effects of statins.
mhm,
So LDL is kind
mhm,
of the tricky one to focus on. There
mhm,
may have been some other signs with your dad. I mean, a heart attack, cardiovascular disease, inflammation, and then
mhm,
yeah, I'm so sorry
mhm,
about Alzheimer's. That's
mhm,
what
mhm.
Megan
Uh-huh,
and you share that too. Watching a parent go through that makes
mhm,
you not want to have your kids have to go through
mhm.
that experience.
Yeah, well, it definitely does. I mean, and I think about those things, and I think most people, you look at your family history and you think, well, I don't really know what it's going to be like for me when I reach that age, but we do have clues, and so sometimes we feel helpless or we feel like, well, there's nothing I can do about it, or you may try to do things, and so and again, I'm being extremely vulnerable here, but I started, my doctor required that I start taking statins, and I tried everything to avoid it, but I am taking them now, and I didn't want to have to. So we'll just see.
Mm-hmm.
So have you, and I've heard some testimonies about people using this that they've been able to get off of statins and
Yeah.
some of
Mm-hmm.
those.
Oh yeah, statins, metformin,
Mhm,
the prescription drugs,
mhm,
they're able to reduce what they work with their doctor, so we don't give any medical advice on that, but their numbers
yeah,
should be better. Their blood pressure
mhm,
starts to get better, and the
mhm,
medication that they needed to manage their blood pressure, their blood sugar, so let's say metformin or insulin,
mhm,
and then statins, so cholesterol, those
mhm,
numbers normalize without them, and then they're on too many meds, so the doctor, or
mhm,
they work with their doctor to modify their prescriptions. But yes, and statins, the reason that we would be driven to try and, especially for women on statins, it's even more serious. But some of the side effects of statins, muscle ache, if you've seen those, but
mhm.
it increases your chance of getting type 2 diabetes,
Mhm,
which is the much higher risk of cardiovascular disease to have type
mhm,
2 diabetes than it is to have high cholesterol.
mhm.
So
And the
if
crazy thing is, they'll say you need to take these statins, but then there is no guarantee that it's going to really help you. So it's like, oh, you just feel like, okay, well,
what do I do?
we'll
And
do it, but reluctantly. But now, and my mom did have a disabling stroke, and she refused to take statins.
no.
And so that was one of the reasons I finally decided to do it, because I thought if I can avoid having that disabling stroke, then maybe it would be worth it.
Mhm.
Is there anything that would say to yourself if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice about uh, starting your business? What would it be?
All life. I think the piece of advice I would like to give myself overall is probably to not be afraid of being an entrepreneur. I mean,
Mhm,
I stayed in corporate America for a really long time,
mhm,
because I was a little bit afraid of kind of pulling the ripcord and seeing
mhm,
what life was like.
mhm,
I was worried about, like, well, what do people do for health insurance? And what do
mhm,
you do for this? And what do you do for that? Like, we have to pay for your own trips. And I
mhm,
was like, oh my gosh, this stuff was so simple. The little things that I was staying in corporate America for were
mhm,
resolved in 2 hours, right?
mhm,
Like, oh, guess what? There's health insurance is really easy to find. Like all of the things that seem is
mhm,
so insurmountable, were
mhm,
really quite simple. And one of the things that I just love about having your own business and working for yourself is, all of those things that you're building go to your legacy instead of to corporate America, in which they,
mhm,
give you a salary, they give you a salary for, you save for retirement for that. But as you build something, you're building it for yourself. So the extra time that you put in or whatever happens, gets very, very exciting when it's for you. So the advice I would have given myself was to not be so afraid of going out on your own as an entrepreneur, because there's so much support. I mean, there's just so much support out there for entrepreneurs. And especially in our community in Huntsville, I feel like Huntsville is like the hub supporting other entrepreneurs. And I love that about the city. I love I love being here. I love everything about the city, but especially I love how they're always like lending a hand for like, oh, you have a business? Like, how can we, how can we elevate everyone's business at the same time? So it's
And
just,
that's something that's one of the reasons I do these interviews is to help support our local businesses. And yet this one's gotten more on the personal side for me, and it's not usually that way, but um, and I love that you love Huntsville. This is my hometown. So even though you're not from here, we welcome you. We're so glad you have made it your home and that you love my hometown. So what are your aspirations and plans for the future of your business?
Mhm. So really growing here locally. So I have a lot of business partners across the country, and we're really building a hub here in Huntsville so that we can gather together and do that. I think a lot of it is, in the first, 5 years that you're in a business is really building. So I'm building generational wealth, building something that is really stable and lasting, but not giving that 50 hours a week to it. So I think having the opportunity for the first time in my life to not have to take PTO to travel. So for us this year, I got to go to Hawaii with my husband on Hawaii, Italy. We're going to Finland. I'm going back to Italy for my 50th birthday. I'm going to be in Thailand and Vietnam in October. And I've never had the freedom to go do these kind of trips. So one of my near-term family legacies is showing my kids the world. I've never had the bandwidth or really the resources to be able to do that previously. And when I look 5 years, there's some foundations here locally that I've always wanted to make just like a big donation to, right? Instead of that, kind of the little things. And so some things that are near and dear to my heart are the single mom. Like, I was raised by a single mom, and it's a challenge for sometimes for a single mom to come in and do the business I do, because it requires not resources financially to get started, but time resources to do that. And so the place that I can help out is to use the resources that I built to help like my single mom friends, like how do we give them a break in some way if maybe they aren't able to build a business like I have right now, but there's things that I can do to support their lives, to make their lives easier. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. And then mentoring younger entrepreneurs, women. I'm a woman in STEM, a woman that went into science, even though I spent most of my career there. Seeing women go into STEM careers, it was such a rewarding thing to do, to have the opportunity have front row seats to like a bunch of really cool technology during my career. So
Yeah.
talking to women about some of the opportunities that go into technology. Those are some of the things that I love. Those are some of my passions and care abouts.
Okay, and this is a great town for that. I know there's so many opportunities for people and definitely for women included in the STEM fields, and that you've had that background so you can, that's a passion that you can support. And that's so great. I love it. I do have my mom was not a single parent, but my sister was. I watched her walk through that, and I've had friends, and being a parent is probably the most challenging yet the most rewarding job on earth. But for a single parent, it is even so much more so challenging, but also rewarding. And that's something that I think that a single mom, sometimes we think, well, it would be better maybe, if they didn't have that challenge of being a parent. But you know what? That motivates a single mom. That is like, most single moms that I've talked to, they want to do their best for their children, and so empowering them to be able to do that, and to be a great single parent. We have some wonderful things here in town. I've talked a little bit about this before. Lincoln Village Ministries, they set up, and I don't know if you've are
Yeah.
familiar with them.
Yeah.
You may be, but
Yeah.
they do you know about them?
Yeah. Yeah. They're,
Okay.
I mean, they were like a game, I mean, changed so many people's lives.
Oh
Like,
yeah, for sure. So anyway, but there are other
mhm.
things as well. And there's so many things I'm always discovering about that we have here in Huntsville, that are available to people, and just love that the mentality of our town is that we want to renovate from the inside out. We don't just let our town go to pot. We take care of it, and we try to help and bring everyone along with us, to be a better place to live. And it's not perfect, and no place is, but I think that we're doing trying. People are trying, and people want to help, and I just love that about Huntsville. So. So I'm going to also conclude this by I have to tell people that I've decided to join your team through Megan. So I'm actually going to be participating with you, and I look forward to joining you in the journey. But that doesn't mean I'm not a real estate agent, because I definitely am.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But this is just something that, just like you and just like so many others, that we're adding this to what we do. Um, I am so excited. I'm so excited about learning more about it. And I do think it is definitely affordable. That's another thing. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think so. First of all, like, what is the cost of type 2 diabetes? It's like 18,000. It's like $18,000 a year, right?
Mhm,
If you get to that point. So
mhm,
what this is, it's like $5 a day. So if
mhm,
you're using like three packages, like $1.70 a packet throughout the day. For
mhm,
most people, it just means they skip Starbucks in the morning. You take those $5 and you use them on this system.
mhm,
And I find that I spend a lot less on groceries. So overall, the savings is because I'm just not snacking all that. I realize I need to snack all the time.
mhm,
I'm spending less food on groceries when I eat. I'm just not eating as much food because the fiber helps me feel full. So yes, it's extremely affordable to
mhm,
do. It's really cost neutral because you save the money that you're spending on the system.
mhm,
And then that's even talking about, let's say that you don't need to be on some of the prescription drugs. You're not in that, like, take this, come back in 60 days. Let's do your blood work again. You have an office
mhm,
visit, there's copay, the blood work. So
mhm,
that kind of cycle that you're in of back in the doctor, back in the doctor, back in the doctor,
mhm,
um, which the doctor probably won't like that, but you cut a lot of those
mhm,
healthcare costs out of
mhm,
your life in the short term, and then especially in the future. So yeah,
mhm,
it's quite affordable and easy, really easy to use. And what I love too is, and I too don't want to sound like an infomercial, but many people, like, they can't work out. I mean, they have
mhm,
type 2 diabetes, they have neuropathy, they're not mobile anymore. You
mhm,
don't have to exercise to do this. People can just start wherever they are,
mhm.
get your blood sugar levels low, and once you start feeling better, maybe that's when you start trying to go for a little walk. But you don't have to be mobile in order to see some benefit from this. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to start some new crazy routine. You don't have to totally throw away everything that you're used to eating. You get to do what you normally do and just incorporate this in your life.
That's good to hear. That's actually a point that I had not heard and not thought about really, but very good. And I will say that I have noticed, that I'm not eating as much, so that you would save the money on the food that you're not consuming, but the cost is really, I believe that it would come back to most people in the form of not paying for prescriptions or doctor bills or food. Um, so yeah, I think it's very affordable. And I do remember Megan saying something about in some countries where the cost of living is not quite what it is here, that they can afford it as well. Uh, and they're seeing more diabetes because of there's so much more carbohydrates in their diets, and the sugary drinks, and the just high carb diets.
Right. So they're seeing an
Uh,
increase, yeah, in some other countries too. They're seeing a lot of,
can
and
you speak to that a little bit?
and I mean, one thing that's really interesting too is because you think like, oh, in Asia, like Japan
Mhm.
and South Korea, like, oh,
Right.
everyone looks thin. There's no diabetes, or they actually have the same rate. So this system is actually even more popular in Southeast Asia with all these thin people because they struggle with the metabolic health. It just looks different. In the US,
Mhm.
it looks more like obesity,
Mhm.
a physical, but their blood work, they struggle, if not the same or more. It just
Yeah.
looks around the world. We see a lot of people right now from South Africa that are really struggling with diabetes, people who have lost their parents. They're in orphanages, little
Mhm.
kids, their parents in their 30s have already died of type 2 diabetes, which
Oh,
is so tragic because
yes.
2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease. You can
Mhm.
eat differently and reverse it. Type 1 diabetes is different. This is a autoimmune where your pancreas has shut down, it's no longer producing insulin. Type 1, type 2 diabetes though is lifestyle related and
Mhm.
reversible, preventable, as is type 3 diabetes. So yes,
Mhm.
around the world the
Mhm.
solutions available and affordable,
Mhm.
in
Okay.
in in places.
Okay, well, I know I could ask you questions for an hour, but let's start wrapping this up and just tell us a little bit if there's one thing that you'd like our audience to take away from this interview about you and your business. What would it be?
I think it's that we're really we're really growing, and I think the part that seems appealing is if you're working in corporate America like I was, and you're making a good salary, and you just think like, well, I'm trapped here, I'm trapped in this place. There's not a place that you can go make enough of a living to be able to step out. I was excited to find a place. I had kind of tried some other businesses before, but I could never even come close to replacing my income. And
Mhm.
here I did in, less than a year. So I think that's the part, is like this growth, people who want to help people. There's a lot of people that maybe they were laid off, or they are in, kind of that 60s range where it's hard to find a job back in corporate America. I mean, they're competing against people of different age groups, but they still have a drive to do something important. And this is a place for that group of people to be as well.
Mhm.
Um, who have trouble, going back and getting a job if you sort of aged out of the resume thing and no one will look at you. This is another space that we plan from being an entrepreneur and a business owner. So those are some of the things I'm looking at, and then seeing really just different populations of people that are looking for a legit opportunity where I'm not making this huge like franchise investment. I don't have a building. I don't have to spend any money on advertising.
Mhm.
And I love to work with just some really amazing people, because the people who are attracted to this are people who want to rid the world of people getting their feet amputated because of type 2
Mhm.
diabetes, right? Those are the people who are like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I've always wanted to play on a major stage and actually helping people with their health.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. That is amazing. That is truly wonderful. A lot of the points you're emphasizing about entrepreneurship, um, and all the obstacles that people say, well, I can't quit my regular job because I need the insurance, I need this, I need that, I need the other. And
Mhm.
then when you reach a point where it's like, well, maybe I can make enough money, without having to work for someone else, because in that corporate job, they're going to replace you. Someone else will step right in. I used to be a teacher, and there were times like in some of the public schools that I taught in, I thought these kids really need me, but they're going to find another teacher that's going to also be able to meet those needs. But when you do something that is a business that you're growing, there's so much more that you can offer to your loved ones and to those that you help partner with to grow that business. So that is exciting.
I know, and I love what you said too, because it is a lot of my former colleagues in the defense. A lot of them got excess package layoff. Many were laid off this year,
Mhm.
excess, and they literally gave their heart and soul to this, a company, this company for decades, and then one day it's just over for them, whether they decided or not. And I think that's the space where it feels like you give so much, but the numbers don't look good, or, someone like merger acquisition, something changed, and in one day your life could change. And I think that's what's nice about having your own business, is you're just immune to that, that's that part. You don't have to live in that world anymore where
Mhm.
you can just decide that your job goes, someone else can decide your job goes away one day and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Freedom
Well, I
from
think I'm thankful that we live in a country where we can be entrepreneurs and we can have our own businesses, and we hope we always have that opportunity, but we shouldn't take it for granted. So, yeah, I'm very thankful for that. Anyway, I just have really enjoyed our conversation today. Amarie, thank you so much for the time you've taken to share with us.
Yeah.
And even
Again, I just love your heart for
though,
people and learning about people. So it's really an honor to get to know you better. And I look forward to that. Everything that you do is very top notch. And I appreciate the work that you put in.
well, I appreciate that, Amarie, and the feeling is mutual. So thank you so much.